Good. Well, let's spend a few minutes talking about you, the entertainment business, the podcast, the website, and then we'll spend a few minutes talking about homeschool. But talk to us about the podcast and entertainment and the website.
Well, thanks so much for letting me kind of just go everywhere with this particular, because I have all these different ideas. But God and Gigs and my website, allancpaul.com, basically come back to those situations, those core categories, I guess you could call them: faith, career, family, culture. Four, yeah. So those areas are really where I try to help musicians, artists, creators, faith-focused freelancers, I call them, just to live a better life. And I try to do it in those areas. And I try to coach and help them, whether it's, helping them get websites together. So that's kind of the entrepreneurial side, right? Or the landing pages. I've had to be a bootstrapper when it comes to the digital world. I knew nothing about this. I was a music school teacher, so I didn't know how to build a website or how to build a landing page or what an email list was, or, how to get my finances together or doing advertising. None of that. That's not taught, unfortunately, even the music side in terms of the entertainment industry. Yeah. Those people are just really talented. And then they say, oh, by the way, here's a contract, sign it. And guess what happens? 9 times out of 10, all their money goes to the record label or to something. So there's so many pieces of just education and, being a good person, having your emotional balance. There's so many areas that musicians and artists and creative types usually don't get. So that's definitely where I felt like my leaning go to. So I do the podcast based on that, the website, I do coaching, all through godandgigs.com. And then allancpaul.com is like the catch-all for everything else. Like you said, the career advice, the cultural perspectives, inspirational writings, pretty much anything that I feel can help somebody else build that bridge between where they want to go and where they want to go. That's where I put allancpaul.com stuff. And I'm still developing that, to be honest with you. I'm right in the middle of this entrepreneurial journey of deciding what's the next big thing, what should be the thing I should be serving humanity with. And so, it's just a great journey. And I see myself as a Sherpa, those guys that walk up the mountain versus the person at the top of the mountain. I feel like I'm walking alongside people. Mm-hmm. So anybody that's on this journey, that's a musician or artist, and you're like, what do I do next? I'm kind of started and I kind of, all the gigs that dried up. Our industry is literally gone poof overnight. Yeah. What do I do now? And I'm a guy that's, I might be a few steps ahead of you. I have a website. I've built some things. I've got some brands. I've got some mini brands, micro brands, I call them. Here's how you build yours. Here's how I did it. And that's really what I'm trying to do with both God and Gigs and with the, the other creative coaching things I'm doing.
When we had our introductory call, I remember us talking about, and I as a business person, I find this fascinating. So I'll spend a minute or two talking about it. But we talked about creative people. I'm not a creative person. I'm the other side of the brain. I can't draw a straight line to save my life, and I wish to God I could play a piano or play a guitar. I keep telling myself I'm going to try it, and I never get around to doing it. But I'm very jealous of those that can, and lost in that, I think, on the flip side, is that most entertainers and musicians are so talented at what they do, and lost in that is what they're not good at, particularly ones as they get more famous and start to make money. You start to, get your God complex rolling, and all of a sudden you can do no wrong, except you have no idea about the other side of your brain, the stuff that I'm really good at. So is there your thoughts on how that bridge might be gapped to any folks on the business side that are thinking about getting into music or entertainment, or that might be listening on the entertainment side that are looking for any advice they can about how to bridge that gap, if you will?
Well, the thing that first popped into my head, there was a book that I read called The Ignorant Maestro. I can't pronounce the author's name. I think it's an Israeli guy. It's a conductor, actually. But when we talked about this last time, it popped into my head because he has built a bridge between the orchestra world. He's an orchestra conductor, and he does business seminars. And I remember reading his book, and what he was talking about really is a leadership book. And he talks about how the conductor is a creative person, right? But every conductor is basically a CEO of the orchestra.
Right.
And so what I would say is the first thing that popped into my head, even as you kind of talked about it, I said, well, I got to mention this because I think you as a leader of a business, or any leader, anybody in any space where you have to lead people, run a business, whatever, you're making creative decisions in terms of interpersonal decisions, in terms of how you react to certain situations. there's a moment, he calls it the gap in this book, David Maestro. He calls it the gap. There's a gap between what you're going to do when you lift your arms for the conductor to start, and then when you bring your arms down. There's a gap. There's kind of a silence, right? You can all imagine, like, the orchestra's getting ready to go, and you hear that. At that gap, he says, that's where every business person has to be creative. You have to decide what's going to happen in that moment. Am I going to bring it down forcefully? Do I want to push? Do I want to let the orchestra play by themselves? Some conductors just stand there. Like, they won't even move the baton. They just stand there and look at the orchestra, and they're like, what is he doing? Well, because he's the kind of leader that trusts his orchestra. He doesn't lead by every single beat. He tries to let them, let
them do their thing.
Let them do their thing. And so he talked about the different leadership types. So to me, that's one of the things that I think a lot of business people miss out on, is that you may not be a creative by yourself in terms of, like you said, drawing or writing a song or playing anything, but you do have a creative moment in each day where you have to decide which path am I going to take. And that goes to the right. It goes to the right side. I mean, like, how to, this business is something that no one's done before, or this particular idea is something that, it may work, it may not work. It's a risk.
Yeah.
It's the lifting of the baton. What are you going to do when you bring it down? And I think that spirit and that idea, that creativity is not just in the artistic world, but it's really in terms of how we live our lives, that I think a lot more people can get into. On the creative side, in terms of business, I think a lot of us have also just bought into the stereotype, man. We bought into that as soon as you have a calculator or you have a pen, that you're not an artist anymore.
Right.
That you got to be this free, the whole phrase starving artist is it's a myth, man. The starving artist mindset came from this idea of Michelangelo, some of these other guys being poor artists, painting the Sistine Chapel. And I think I told you that the book I'm alluding to is called Real Artists Don't Starve by Jeff Goins. And he talks about the fact that Michelangelo was basically a millionaire by today's standards. But the idea is that, if you suffer for your art and you're poor and you're a better artist. It's just not true, man. Like, I want to be the artist that knows how to balance a checkbook, that pays his taxes on time,
right?
That handles things. And I just have to, be more sensitive, because I am more of an ADD person. But I think the stereotype that we buy into, that creatives only do this and business people only do this, is something we just got to knock out apart, because I think business people can learn from the creative side and use those kind of, risk-taking skills to apply to their business side. And then the creatives need to take something from you guys and say, hey, tell me how to balance, tell me what assets are, tell me what liabilities are, tell me how not to get into debt if I don't have to.
Tell me how not to have my money stolen.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like those things, again, I think we just buy it. Again, it's kind of like the narrative we said, even with society. If you buy into what everybody else says you're supposed to do, what everybody else just says, we just don't do that kind of thing. Well, why not? Why can't I be a savvy artist? Why can't I be a creative business person? Like, nobody said you couldn't, except the people that you're listening to that clearly haven't tried it. So I think it's just a matter of just like getting out of the box of the stereotypes, man, and just trying out new things.